Imagine you're suddenly facing a massive, terrifying problem. What does your brain do? If you're like most of us, your thoughts start swirling a mile a minute. It's completely natural. When we get scared, our first instinct is usually to run around frantically or try to invent a really complicated plan to save ourselves. Look at this stone carving. It shows the ancient Assyrian army, a brutal military force that was marching straight toward the people of Israel thousands of years ago. The Israelites were absolutely terrified. But instead of pausing to ask God for help or protection, they gave in to total panic and decided their only option was to run away. They abandoned their posts and fled straight down to the nation of Egypt, hoping they could just buy safety and protection there. This ancient carving shows an Egyptian chariot and horse. That is exactly the kind of military technology the Israelites wanted to buy, believing human weapons were better than God's help. When we are scared, our first reaction is almost always to try and buy or build our own safety, instead of trusting the Creator who made us. God sent a message through the prophet Isaiah to tell the Israelites that making desperate plans without consulting him was a terrible idea. To help them understand, God used a very clear picture in Isaiah chapter 30 to describe their frantic alliance with Egypt. He said trusting this frantic, godless plan was exactly like trying to lean your full weight against a high wall that is cracked and bulging. Think about that for a second. What happens if you try to use a crumbling, unstable wall as a safe hiding place? It is going to collapse right on top of you. When real trouble hits, leaning on our own fear-based plans will eventually fall apart. God had a surprising, blunt message about the mighty Egyptian army. He told Israel that Egypt's help was completely useless and would bring them zero advantage.
God even gave Egypt a funny, mocking nickname. He called them Rahab the Do-Nothing. Imagine hiring a famous superhero to come fight a monster at your house, but when they arrive, they just take a nap on your couch. That is what relying on Egypt was like. Look at this old, weathered scroll. Isaiah was commanded to write this warning down permanently on a scroll just like this, so future generations would never forget it. Instead of running away on swift horses, God gave the Israelites a new instruction. He told them that in turning back to Him and resting is their salvation. In quietness and trust is their strength. True safety doesn't come from running faster or planning harder. It comes from stopping, taking a breath, and trusting that God is in control. But why is it actually safe to just stop and trust God when terrifying enemies are closing in? Isaiah chapter 31 gives us the answer. The powerful Egyptians were just flesh and blood mortals, but God is the all-powerful Spirit. To describe Himself defending His people, God uses the image of a great, fierce lion. A mighty lion growling over its prey is completely unafraid. Even if a whole army of shepherds showed up to shout and make loud noises, the lion wouldn't even flinch. That means God is never intimidated. No matter how scary a problem, a bully, or an enemy might seem to us, they do not scare Him at all. These are the ancient stone walls of Jerusalem. This is the specific physical city God promised to shield and protect with His mighty power. But God also uses a second picture. He says He is like a mother bird hovering overhead, gently shielding and rescuing her nest. Trusting God makes perfect sense, because He offers both the unbreakable strength of a roaring lion and the gentle, close protection of a mother bird. So what actually happens when people finally stop panicking and let God's justice and righteousness lead the way? Isaiah chapter 32 tells us that God becomes a refuge from the storm and acts like fresh streams of water in a dry desert. Watch how this dark, chaotic storm dissolves into a bright, calm, sunlit field. This is the peace that replaces panic when we choose God's protection. When we live in the way God designed us to, that peace just naturally follows us wherever we go. Choosing to trust Him replaces chaos with quietness and confidence forever. It proves that God's plan is always better than our panic. Let's bring this right down to your everyday life. There are plenty of situations that can make you feel panicked or afraid. Maybe you're facing a hard test, feeling afraid of the dark, or a tough problem with friends. Remember the bad choice we learned about today. You don't need to try and fix it all by yourself, or lean your weight on a cracked, crumbling wall. Instead, you can make the good choice. You can simply stop, take a deep breath, and remember God's promise. You find your strength in quietness and in trusting God to handle the scary stuff for you. No matter how big the problem seems, the Creator of the universe is watching over you with the fierce, unstoppable protection of a mighty lion.